Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 4 of the SDHQ Podcast. I'm your host, Noah Kopetsky, the creator of Steam Deck HQ, here with our co-host, High Tech Lowlife, who is a YouTuber and makes some amazing Steam Deck-related videos. How you doing, High Tech?
Thank you, thank you. I am doing quite well. I am here, and thank you for having me on the SDHQ podcast.
Yeah, it's a pleasure. Thank you for finding the time and being here. I really do appreciate it. If you guys haven't checked his stuff out yet, he makes some really high quality videos, including one of the best, tutorial videos for just going into the Steam Deck. He calls it the Masterclass series. It's fantastic, and I highly recommend checking it out.
Thank you, thank you. I appreciate it. I'm struggling a little to come up with a new masterclass series because I think I've covered most of the things people want, but
Mhm.
maybe we'll get there later.
Well, I'm very curious if you decide to. Is there so? Do you have an idea for what like your next episode would be, or is it something that just you're not sure where to move forward from? Yeah.
Um, I mean, I've had some ideas, but then some. It's part of like, is it maybe too niche of an idea to cover?
Mhm.
If it's something, is it really something that people want? I have made a couple of I've made a couple of those masterclass videos, and yeah, a lot of them do pretty well, I would say.
Mhm.
But there are some that are more niche, like more like the in-home streaming video. I think probably didn't do so hot compared to some of
Mhm.
the other videos I've made. But I mean, they generally seem to do pretty well. I just need to figure out what people value. What sort of
Mhm.
things do people want to know about? I mean, what more do they need to know about the Steam Deck? And it's sometimes I really it's and sometimes I just come up with an idea, but then I
Mhm.
realize I probably just covered it already in a prior video. But I mean, if there's an idea that maybe needs to be revisited in case of like an update or something, then I'll be sure to do so. But ultimately, it's what the people want, and I got to figure
Mhm.
out what the people want.
Well, that makes sense, and I'm sure it's going to come up, especially as new updates are coming out. Like, oh, apologies for that random cut, everybody. My camera died, and I had to go plug it in and make sure it was charging while we were continuing to record. So now that that's all squared, what do you say we get into this episode's topics?
All right, that sounds good. That sounds good to me.
Let's do it. So starting off, we do have the games that have Steam Deck related updates, and this first one is a pretty big game, Everspace 2, which is a um, dogfighting spaceship game where you're going through space, going to different missions, destroying enemies, constantly upgrading your gear and loot. Actually, got an update where they upgrade their engine from Unreal Engine 4 to Unreal Engine 5, and they had to switch and fix over the Steam Deck's playability by forcing the game to run at DirectX 11 because otherwise it would crash from VRAM usage. So they changed the game up a little bit to force anytime you run the game, it will always start in DirectX 11. So
Yeah, yeah, it sounds pretty good. I haven't played Everspace 2 myself. I think I might have played Everspace
it's
1.
it's good. They made a lot of great improvements with Everspace too. I wish it isn't talked about as much, but it deserves it. It's fantastic. Um,
Yeah, I might have to check it out at some point.
Absolutely, I recommend it. We're gonna work on settings for it soon too. It's just the backlog is massive, so it's hard to find the time. But Everspace 2 is exciting, so I think I'm going to be working on that soon. Um, Instruments of Destruction, which is a game about basically using vehicles to destroy buildings, and it has all these physics uh, that are, I guess, processed with it. So buildings will crumble, pieces will fly everywhere. I love those kinds of games. I love those kinds of games. But with the newest update, which is version 1.0.1, there's some new minimum frame rate options to help battery life and keep stability in check when you're playing on the Steam Deck. And the game will no longer sync its PC settings with Steam Cloud, which means that if you play the game
Wow.
on like a desktop PC that's much more powerful, you'll usually set the resolution higher, you might set the graphical options higher, and before, if you use Steam Cloud and you brought it to your Steam Deck, it would save those settings from your desktop PC. Now it won't do that anymore. And it's nice. I wish more games did something like that. Like, it's a nice concept, but at the same time, if you're changing over to a new computer or a new device, it's going to be significantly harder to play because it's just going to be used to like the much more powerful device.
Oh, dude, that's like one of my pet peeves with like syncing settings across Steam Decks and PCs. It Valve even puts it in the documentation for Steam Cloud that developers really shouldn't sync these things. Like they really
Yeah.
shouldn't sync the settings.
And I completely agree with that. Like, they really shouldn't, because it's so it is so obnoxious having to change settings over again when I'm playing on the Steam Deck. Like, I understand it. But I don't like it. Um, Other than that, we
And
have Q Club 2, which is a game where you're playing pool, or where you're using a big stick and hitting balls you know, on a pool table. I don't what There's another name for it though. Isn't there another name for pool? It's like eight
I think billiard. No, I think that's a different
billiards.
game altogether.
Billiards. Yeah. That's the name
Yeah.
I couldn't remember. So Q Club 2 is a billiards pool game where you can play, billiards online with your friends. And on Steam Deck recently, there was this weird little thin pixel border that was around the screen, and that has been fixed. It was
Huh.
only on the Steam Deck though. So
Well, that's interesting. I think I'm better at actual pool than like virtual pool, personally speaking. But
yeah,
that's just
no,
me.
I think so too. Like, I love playing pool. I have fond memories of playing with my father, and it was a lot of fun. But you know, virtual pool, like, I can maybe get some good shots in if the physics are really well tuned. But it seems as though Q Club 2 does have better tuned physics, but it's just, again, it's not the same as having like the actual game. You know?
Yeah, definitely, definitely. I think most of my pool memories comes from playing with my college buddies, and I think a couple
Mhm.
of them accused me of sharking them. But I mean, it's
I
their
bet you
problem.
did.
Maybe
Maybe a little.
a
On top
little.
of that, we have Back for Blood, which is not a game that I really talk about or really hear that much anymore. But it recently, with one of the more recent updates, it had an anti-cheat issue that was put into the game where you could not play it on the Steam Deck. And there was a little hotfix that was released a couple of days ago where it's now fixed. So now you can play Back for Blood on the Steam Deck without any issues from anti cheats, and it actually runs really well on the Steam Deck, which I was shocked by. But now we should be able to play it again without any issues.
I mean, I enjoyed Back for Blood when I tried it out on Game Pass with my brother. It's
Mhm.
fun, but I don't. It doesn't really capture that same feel as like Left 4 Dead, and
No, like
that that reminds. Yeah,
it's a solid co-op shooter. I will say that it has its pros, but does not hold a candle to Left 4 Dead. And I don't know if any game like that ever will. It's really hard to capture what Left 4 Dead was able to capture.
you ever watch that Krabby Cat video?
I
It's
don't I don't think I did.
yeah, it's a really good video. I know Krabby Cat likes to make kind of sensationalist videos,
Mhm.
especially with Resident Evil 4, but I think he did a really good video on Back for Blood and Left 4 Dead.
Okay.
It's
Well,
called
definitely. Yep.
it's called Back for Blood proves Valve carried Left 4 Dead.
No. Well, unfortunately, with Left 4 Dead being so good, and the only difference between that and Back for Blood is Valve not being a part of it. I mean, I don't want to say it because I respect the Turtle Rock, but mm, they had something magical with Left 4 Dead. They should have made a third game in that series and continued working with Valve. But you live and learn. I really miss Evolve. That was one of my favorite games when it was still like kicking and still around. I really enjoyed that game. It just sucks that, it kind of died down and no one really played it, but it was so much fun. If you're not aware of the game, this was one of the first, at least that I remember, one of the first 1 versus 4 like asymmetrical multiplayer games where you had four survivors, all who had different abilities and guns and all that, and one person who played as this gigantic monster. And the job of the four people, if I remember correctly, was to take down the monster. I couldn't remember if it was to capture or kill, but one of those two. And the monster was obviously supposed to use their abilities to stop you. And such a great concept, and I think it was just executed poorly. And then, but it was still, I loved the game. I really wish that they continued with it.
I think it was just ahead of its time because if you look at something like Dead by Daylight, it's a very similar concept, except
Yeah.
the humans, I believe, cannot meaningfully harm you. I haven't played Dead for Daylight myself, but
Dead by Daylight, yeah, it's basically like that. So all the survivors can like they run around, they're trying to repair generators. They can't directly attack the like killer. And I think it's
Mhm.
really cool what Dead by Daylight does because they base all their killers on like actual like Hollywood movie killers or just these sensationalized killers. Like they have the alien, they have um God, who else do they have? I don't play Dead by Daylight that much, and it shows. But um, I liked Alien. I like that they added Alien. I like that specifically that one. But they have other movie killers in there as well. So you can look at it too. I think they added Resident Evil ones as well. So they have like other video game killers too. I think that it was I remember I feel like they added Leon and Claire and Ada as survivors, which I think is cool that they do that too. And the killer, I can't remember.
they added Nicolas Cage
They did add
as
Nicolas Cage, yeah, but he
they
was
should have
not a
added him as a
killer.
killer. They should have added him as a killer. That would have been
Yeah,
so
that would have been hilarious if they added him as a killer. Oh man, I would have bought it, like, or like I would have
awesome.
gotten like I would have pre-ordered that. Um,
It's
but
not too late. It's
maybe
not too late.
maybe I gotta go do that right now. Um, Recently, Braid, which is probably one of the first indie games that I noticed. Like, I don't remember the indie stage before Braid, which came out in like 2008. Um, re-released the game with the anniversary edition, which brought in new levels, commentary, better visuals, like overhauls throughout the entire game. And most recently, they had an update to improve support for the OLED Steam Deck, specifically the OLED Steam Deck model, and better support for the Steam Deck's frame rate limiter altogether. So I assume that like before this, the frame rate limiter didn't work too well, and now it should work a lot better, which is great. I like seeing that. And I don't know if I would pay another $20 for Braid just because it's such an old game, and and it's a great game. If you've never played it before, I recommend paying for it at that price. But as someone who already owns it and has already played it, it's a tougher one for me, tougher pill for me to swallow.
I mean, to be fair, it is like a over 15-year-old game at this point. So I think there's a
Yeah.
lot of people out there that just may have never played it. I mean,
Hmm.
heck, there's probably like teenagers that have never played it and maybe they're into indie games right now. And I think it's worth playing. It's like one of the yeah, like you said, it's one of the first like big indie games to really pose the question of what if
Yeah.
video games were art? Because I remember indie games used to be kind of a cave story. And I remember Cave Story back in like 2004. I was still in school back then, but yeah, Cave Story was pretty good, but it was
Hmm.
kind of just more like a simple-ish game.
Yeah, and it's really good. Don't get me wrong. Like Braid was also made by one person. That entire it was one of the solo devs that really stood out. And it's a great, like you said, like if you've never played the game before, I think this is the best way to experience it. But as someone who's already played the game, it's hard to justify going back into it for, it's hard to justify going back into it for $20. I do believe that if you already own the original game, I believe you can get it for a discounted price, and I'm actually checking that right now just to verify. Yeah, so okay. So it's a loyalty discount. So if you already own the game, you can get it for 50% off and get it for $10. And you have until June 14th to do it. That one might be a little bit more worth it. I think I could justify it for $10. $20, I don't know, because like I remember when Braid came out on like the Xbox, and that's how I first played it. So like if if you played it on like Xbox, you're obviously not going to get that loyalty discount. But I think there is I like it. Like I like the game. I don't know if I could do $20, but I could do 10.
I
Um
think I have. Yeah, I definitely have a DRM free version of the original Braid.
yeah.
I got it from the original Humble Bundle back
Yeah,
in the
I
day.
remember I got a solid amount of copies of the original from the Humble Bundles. Um but no, it's a really good game though. And I do
Hmm.
recommend it if you've never played it before. Um
Absolutely. There's also
one
it's
oh yeah.
also one of the focal points of the indie game movie. You ever heard of it? Indie game the
Yes.
movie.
Yeah. I
It's
know
one
John
of
the developer Jonathan Blow was part of it.
and yes, there was one scene where he reacted to Soldier Boy's review of Braid. Which have you seen that?
I have not. But
It's
now I'm going to go watch it because you said that
it's
specifically.
it's the funniest thing ever.
Yeah.
Like how Braid has this reputation for being really introspective and like
Yeah.
this really deep game. Oh, you have to watch how Soldier Boy just like
Well, I guess I know what I'm going to be doing later.
oh
Um
no. But I
I
mean,
know
yeah, I mean
Okay.
it's a good
Sorry,
game. It's a good game.
I want to make sure I didn't talk over you. So one last game to go over is this game called Footgun Underground, which I didn't know anything about before this. I think it was one of those games that released, in the actually it released on April 30th. So it was like right before May. And it looks awesome. It's like a football-ish version of a roguelike where you're all still fighting monsters and you're in these contained levels, but you're basically kicking a ball around to destroy them. And it got an
Oh, it's not
update.
American football.
Yeah, I mean football. Yeah, American football or soccer, whichever. Did I say football?
You did say football, which is why I was asking.
Living outside of America, that's I guess has ingrained in me, which I'm actually happy about.
Yeah.
But recently there was a small hotfix for it, which improved the cloud save function on Steam Deck, which is always nice. And there was some controller bugs that were ironed out. So it should be much more playable on the Steam Deck. And it looks really cool. And it's one of those games that I haven't really seen before. So I definitely think it's worth checking out if you haven't heard it yet and you really like roguelikes.
I'm checking it out right now, and it does look quite up my alley. I
Right.
do think it's an interesting concept. I'll probably have to do it after the podcast.
Oh yeah, no. I definitely check it out though. But with those game updates out of the way, and we do have some other updates, but they're not really specific for the Steam Deck. It's more just interesting to talk about. So we're going to go into those a little bit later. But I want to start with Ghost of Tsushima. The game just came out yesterday, and have you actually played a little bit of it yet?
Um, Not on the Steam Deck or even on PC. I've played it on the original
Not on the Steam
PS4.
Deck or on PC at all, but
I've played it on PS4, the original version, not the
Mhm.
director's cut.
Yeah. No, it's just the reason I ask is because obviously it came out and we played it on the Steam Deck for a bit. Do you plan on getting it, or rebuying
Absolutely.
it and getting it on the Steam Deck?
Absolutely. Ghost of Tsushima is an excellent title, and I don't really know. I'm not really privy to the changes they've made on the director's. Is it director's cut? I
Yeah,
believe it's called.
director's cut. Yeah,
All right, yeah, I'm not really privy to any of the changes that they've made there, but I mean, I definitely want to replay it at some point.
I,
Probably next month, though. I have a lot of
yeah,
stuff on my table.
I completely understand that. I'm actually extremely surprised with how well it performs on the Steam Deck. Now, recently we did an article about like our first impressions of it, and we actually made a video, or I did. I'm very proud that I did it. And I know I trust Nixie's. I trust Nixie's software with everything that they do. They've proven themselves as being so great at porting games over. So I don't really doubt them. But it's still nice to see how well it's running. And I expected 30 frames per second with solid, quality, which is what we're getting. But we're actually able to hit 40 if we're willing to make some changes to the settings, which I was very surprised by. I did not expect to hit 40 frames per second. It feels wonderful on the Steam Deck.
I saw, yeah, I watched the video, and I think it's.
I was giving you a moment to respond.
Yeah, I think it's a I mean, it's kind of, yeah. I am surprised that it would run at 40 FPS. I was kind of expecting to be a smooth 30 FPS the entire time,
Mm-hmm.
kind of like how it was on the PS4. And I mean, I wouldn't have minded that either. To be honest, it's a good game, but 40 is amazing. Do you think you could ever take it up to 60 if you just dropped all the graphical details and cranked up FSR 3?
So there are some parts of the game that actually does get up to, like, at least with the settings that we recommended to start. So we recommended that if you're going to play it, play at the low quality settings with the dynamic resolution scale set to 60. And this way you will get, like, 40 frames per second. You shouldn't have any trouble hitting that for
Mm-hmm.
most of the areas of the game. Using those settings, there were still some areas that could get up to like 50 to 55. They would still drop back down if you were running, like, or if you were galloping on your horse and, just running through fields or fighting leagues of enemies and there's explosions going on. Um, so I don't know if there's a chance it'll be a stable 60 all throughout, but there's definitely some promise. And if they continue to optimize and they do some optimizations for the Steam Deck specifically, I could see it hitting at least 45 or 50. Um, I think the fact that it's hitting 40 at all is exciting. Like, that's extreme. I did not expect that. Like, I thought it was going to be, especially for an open world game, I really thought it was going to be one of those where it was harder to hit above 30, but there was going to have to be compromises and then you would get a solid 30 frames per second. Especially in that opening. The opening was a bit tough in some areas. So I actually started my playthrough and I was like, okay, this is going to be a 30 frames per second game. But as I continued, I tried 40. I replayed the opening scene that dropped it with the new settings, and it was able to hit 40. So Nixie's just did an incredible job getting it playable on the Steam Deck, and props to them for it, because it's really fun to play. Um, and I think I noted it is $60. So if you've already played it on PlayStation 4 or PlayStation 5, if you have it there, uh, it might be a very tough ask to invest another $60. Is it really cool to play, like, in the palm of your hands? Yeah. No, it is. It feels weird playing such a big PlayStation exclusive on the Steam Deck on, like, a portable device. But $60 is a lot. I know you can get it on Fanatical for like 49 if you use a coupon code. I think the one I used, or the one I talked about in the video, was Omen 17. But it's great to play regardless. And if you really enjoyed the game, this is a really cool way to experience it. And if you have an OLED Steam Deck, it does have HDR compatibility and it looks phenomenal. Like, the colors just pop. Everything is smooth. I preferred playing it this way versus on, like, the PS4 when I first got the game.
I mean, it's it's a surreal experience playing a PS, like a highly rated, highly regarded PS4 exclusive on the go at a
Mm-hmm.
higher frame rate than what was originally possible, albeit probably a little lower graphical details.
Yeah.
But honestly, I think the game still looks great even at your settings.
Mm-hmm. Like, oh, thank you. But I'm glad. I mean, it looks better. I think it's harder to look at when it's on video. I think it looks worse when it's a video capture. But, like, when it's on a smaller screen in front of you, you can't see the little faults that you might see before. or like in the video. So it is. I really like it. It's much nicer to play on like the smaller screen. Um, but yeah, no, it's weird seeing games like that. I still find it weird, like playing Horizon Zero Dawn or Forbidden West on the Steam Deck is just it's a weird one too. Like I would never uh, imagine playing games that are that big, that are that open, that are that detailed on a portable device like the Steam Deck. So props to Nixies for doing it because they crushed it again. Like they're just continually doing that, and I'm very excited to see what game they're going to work on next. Out of curiosity, what game would you like them to work on next? Like if they could work on any game, and it doesn't have to be a PlayStation exclusive, which most likely it will be, whatever they do. But which game would you like them to do next?
Um, my answer is Bloodborne, but my actual realistic answer is probably Demon Souls remake. And Nix's is definitely Sony's best acquisition outside of maybe uh Insomniac. Are they still
Yeah,
they acquired
I,
them, right?
I believe so. If I remember correctly, it's the two big studio, actually the three big studios that I think of when I think PlayStation is Insomniac, Naughty Dog, and Santa Monica. Those are the big
Absolutely.
three.
Yeah, and then I think the rest of them are just like support studios, like
Yeah.
Nix's, of course, and then you also have Bluepoint, I believe, was another one too.
Yep, Blue Point I think is with them. Is the Horizon is the Horizon team Gorilla? Is that a
Yeah,
PlayStation
I
studio?
I believe so. Yeah, I mean, I believe they've been owned by PlayStation forever at this point. I mean, they made the Killzone games.
Yeah, they are part of PlayStation Studios. I'm looking it up right now because I'm very curious. That's their parent company. So it's interesting to see. Blue Point is with them, but they have some other really interesting ones. Housemark, the ones who did Returnal, is one of their studios as well. And it's a great studio, but I just don't see them doing more than Returnal yet. So I'm curious to see what they're going to do. Sucker Punch is one of theirs as well, and I really like Sucker Punch. I would love for them to bring back the Infamous series. I love Infamous. Like,
Maybe Sly Cooper too.
yeah, they did Sly Cooper as well, but I don't know, something about Infamous just really spoke to me. Like, I loved that game. I would love for them to do like a remaster of it. Um, But I think for me the game I'd like Nixies to do next is actually Spider-Man 2. Like I think especially after Spider-Man and Miles Morales, I feel like Spider-Man 2 would be perfect. There's been enough time, like it's been out for a bit, with Helldivers 2, they saw that releasing on PC same day. They saw a huge success with that. And I'm pretty sure, if I remember correctly, Helldivers 2 is being played more on PC than on PlayStation. So, I think that just goes to show that like releasing games very close to their original release is going to work really well. And, Spider-Man 2, there's been a little bit of time for it, but I think it would still be very, very successful if it was released now. Demon Souls, I think it would be good
Mhm.
too, but it might have been too much time.
Yeah, maybe. I hear I've heard rumors that their next PC port is supposed to be God of War Ragnarok,
I would
which might
love
have been
that too.
my I think that would have been my like third choice after Bloodborne after Bloodborne and Demon
But
Souls.
I think everyone would love Bloodborne to make a comeback. I don't think there's one person. I don't know. I'm pretty sure that's From Software's decision, isn't it?
If I'm not mistaken, both From Software and Japan Studio, rest in peace, Japan Studio, joint developed Bloodborne. Though I think it is mostly From Software. It's hard to know for certain.
I'm looking up right now just to know the public. Not Sony did publish it. Okay, so it's Sony's decision essentially. And I mean, I'm sure From Software has to say yes, but like, yeah, it's probably Sony, which which is weird. There's so many people who want Bloodborne to make a return. I don't know why they haven't done it yet.
I mean, I don't know either. I mean, there might be some red tape associated with the fact that it was also jointly developed by Japan studio, and
Mhm.
we all know what happened to Sony Japan studio, right?
If you want to go over it.
So basically, Japan studio was shut down by Sony.
Mhm.
I need to pull up the details again, but essentially, but they developed a lot of the really really critically acclaimed games. Like a lot of the really famous PS2 titles too, like the Team Ico games. They
Mhm.
made Shadow of the Colossus.
A
I mean,
great
that's
game
like
too.
that's like one of the few games that people think of when they think of PS2, aside from like Metal Gear
Yeah.
Solid 3.
Did they? When did they shutter the studio?
Um, they shuttered the studio. Let me see when this happened.
Do you know off the top of your head?
I believe
If
sometime in 2021.
Yeah, 2021. So yeah, I mean they made amazing games. I mean, after The Last Guardian, it was going to be tough for them to come back from that. I was not that big of a fan of it. Um, but they did the remake for Shadow of the Colossus, which was amazing. Or wait, was that them? No, that might have been Blue Point. Jeez, they
I
did
think
the
it might have been
original,
like
but
I think that might have been like co-developed.
to be honest, I think yeah. After when, man, when did The Last Guardian come out? I think after that they became more of a support studio.
It says Last Guardian came out in 2016.
I mean, they were doing some support before then.
Yeah, like
Yeah,
Bloodborne.
no, they were a big support studio, and then they would make their own games from time to time. But
But they really did make a lot of games that people like love, like from PlayStation. Like
yeah,
yeah, I think there was a they're making movies on some of those. Like and have you heard of the Patapon remake? They're doing that.
the Patapon remake. They're
Yeah,
really
they're making some sort of Patapon remake as well.
hmm,
If I'm not mistaken.
that's interesting. I didn't know that, but I liked Patapon, so that's
Uh,
cool. I'm very happy
They're
to hear that.
Yeah, they're also. I don't know if it's a remake per se, or it could be
Mhm.
like a sequel. I don't know at this point, but it's a new game, and they're also making a movie based on Gravity Rush.
I feel like I heard that one before, but I mean, I love Gravity Rush. Don't get me wrong. Like that would be a really cool game to see come to PC. Like do a Gravity Rush 1 and 2 bundle and bring that to PC. They wouldn't even need to update it too much, honestly. I think the games still look phenomenal, so they wouldn't
Oh yeah,
need to
the art
update it too
style.
much.
Yeah, the art style holds up quite well. I
Yeah,
mean, it's
I would
perks of
love to see
using
that
a
game on PC.
yeah, but there's also the fact that it's pretty gyro intensive, so you'd have to figure out how to get most people to play that.
Yeah, though luckily, at least on the Steam Deck, that wouldn't be too much of an issue. But yeah, it's that one's a tough one. But yeah, no, Ghost of Tsushima is great. Sorry, kind of circling back a little bit. Ghost of Tsushima is great, and so far it's really, really well made and really well optimized for the Steam Deck. So, if you're on the fence about getting it, we're working on going through the game. So, and we're still going to be doing a full review of it. But for now, if you just would like to get in, you just need is it good right now? Is it not? I'm much more optimistic about it. I will say that.
That's good.
Yeah. No, I would recommend it right now if I had to say yes or no. Um, but if you don't want to, purchase any games, there are actually some free games right now that you can get and keep, which I was surprised by. Usually when there's new free games, like we do a free games every week article on Steam Deck HQ. Most of the games from Steam are usually games that you cannot keep permanently. They're games that you can try. But this week, for whatever reason, there are two games. There might be more because I'm pretty sure they're like I remember putting down a solid amount of new games, but there are two games specifically that I know of that you keep forever by redeeming them, and I thought that was really cool. Um, so on Steam, you can get Endless Legend, which huge fan of Endless Legend. I love Endless Legend, which is a 4X strategy game where you're going across like a tabletop board and it has some RPG elements to it. So you're building up your hero, you're building an army, you're building cities, getting resources, researching technology, the good stuff. And then that is free to keep if you redeem it by May 23rd. And then there's 100% orange juice, which
Oh, dude.
I don't know much about 100% orange juice,
Oh, dude,
actually.
you should play it. I love it. It's such a good game. It's like Mario Party, but anime, and it's the funniest game ever. Oh my god. So I mean that it's kind of a reductive statement because there's also cards as well, but I mean the deck building is just kind of secondary to the game. It's not really that important because at the end of the
Mhm.
day, you're playing with four other people, but the real enemy is of course the RNG. It's
Hmm.
it's it's really funny. You should give it a shot. And even if you miss it and you're watching this like later on after the sale after it ends, the game goes on sale for pretty dirt cheap.
Hmm. No, I've seen it going on sale. I never bought it, so I actually got it from this free game. You can keep it. So I got it from this. So I will try it for sure. But I don't know much about it. But it really does look like Mario Party, but it just has anime just smacked on there. So, but it looks like a lot of fun. And now that I do have it, I should try it. So, knowing you have it, I'm probably going to try coercing you to try it with me. Um,
Oh man, yeah, I love the game, man, and I think they did this one time before. I think it was during the dare I say it, the pandemic. Yeah, I think they gave that away as well as another game that they developed called the Acceleration of Security 2,
hmm,
which is it's like a bullet hell arena fighter. I'm not
hmm.
really sure how to describe it, but it is pretty fun though.
Interesting. Well, I mean, that's really nice of them to give away the game so often, especially when there's the pandemic that's affecting a lot of people. So that's really nice of them to do. And it's a multiplayer game, so when you were stuck at home, you were able to play online with friends and such. Um, the only other game I want to bring up here that's free to keep is the Epic game that's free for this week, which is Dragon Age Inquisition Game of the Year edition, which is the newest game in the Dragon Age series. Weird change. I really like the original Dragon Age, but a free game's a free game.
Hey, it's free.
Exactly. And then all you have to do, since it is Epic, it's not on Steam directly. You can use launchers like Heroic or Lutris, or you can use non-Steam launchers to install Epic directly, or you could use Junk Store, which is the plugin that you can log into your Epic account, and it looks like it's just basically integrated within the Steam game mode. Um, all of those work. Dragon Age Inquisition specifically needs some tweaks to work. It is rated unsupported, so it does need a little bit of tweaking to get it working. But yeah, again, free game's a free game. Um, yeah.
I mean, yeah, it's one of the few games that I logged on to Epic to claim too. I mean, typically I kind of just ignore the free Epic games because I tend to own them on Steam already, or they're just
Yeah.
games that don't really interest me.
Hmm.
But I mean, this one I don't actually own on PC. I
Hmm.
think I played this on the PS4 when it came out.
Well, I mean, now you have the chance to get it without paying a dime. I
Ah, dude, I
usually
love that.
right? I usually will just redeem any game from Epic anyways, even if I already own it. Most of them I do because I've like before starting Steam Deck HQ, I was a collector and I had thousands of games already. Um, but I mean, a free game's a free game, and like worst case scenario, if I need to, like I want to play a game with a friend and it's completely online, I could let them borrow my Epic account if I have it there, and I play it from Steam. And most of the time, if it's like an online game, usually there is cross compatibility, but I know some games doesn't, but most of the games do. So
Yeah, I mean,
I like that.
yeah, it's one of the few games I would log on to Epic to get. I'm not saying that I ignore Epic games out of like principle or anything. I know some people
Yeah.
do that because they don't like Epic or whatever. And I
Mhm.
guess and that is fair. That is a fair assertion to
Oh yeah,
have. There's some things
100%.
Epic there's some things Epic does that I don't really like, but most of the reason why I don't claim some of the games is just out of sheer laziness. I could
That
do it,
is
I just don't want to do it.
That's fair. My father actually redeems the Epic games. I don't know if he still plays them, but like every week, like he might send me a message and he'll be like, "Hey, Noah, did you see the new game on Epic?" And I'm like, "Dad, what do you mean?" He's like, but I don't know if he actually plays the games, but he keeps on redeeming them. I think he just wants to build a library. So if he ever does play the games, he's got this like library. Like he started when GTA 5 was free on Epic, like which that was pretty insane too. But yeah, that's when he basically started doing that.
That was such a crazy time too, dude. I don't even think they've ever given away a game like that big since then,
No,
or before then even.
I mean they. I'm trying to remember which other games they gave away. I know they gave away the Borderlands Handsome Jack collection at one point. Um, but I don't remember what else they gave away. Like that was like big enough to justify, like GTA was. I don't think there has been a game that's been as big as like GTA or even come close. Like I like the Borderlands Handsome Jack collection, but it's still not, I guess, not the same as GTA, you know?
I don't think anything will beat GTA. I think the only thing that could ever beat GTA 5 is GTA 6.
And we'll be
And
seeing that you isn't there a new release window for it that was shown off?
yes, I believe it was fall of this year, of next year, fall of 2025.
Hmm. Do you know where that information came from? Was it directly from Rockstar or was it like from PlayStation? I know that they've released some information recently too about like what they're working on.
Um, the information supposedly comes from Take Two directly,
Oh,
and
so neither of what I said.
yeah, so
Okay,
it's
well then
yeah.
that makes more sense than it coming from PlayStation. But I'm not surprised. I think fall of 2025 makes sense, though I feel like that's going to be pushed to like the holidays. I don't see why, if they're so close to the holidays, why wouldn't they do it closer to the holidays? So I think if they stick to fall, it would probably be like October. Like I think they would be closer, but we'll see. A lot of big games do get delayed. It's very possible it could get delayed. I wouldn't be surprised, especially with what we've seen from Rockstar recently.
I mean, this is gonna take a couple. I mean, this probably took them like I don't want to say it took them directly 10 years, but I'm sure they've been thinking about GTA 6 for 10 years.
Oh, I'm sure they've already started thinking about GTA 7. Like
Oh
I
yeah,
that you kind of have to do that with gigantic games like GTA. Like you have to think very far in advance. And I'm not surprised by that. I'm really not surprised by that. Um but hopefully it does come out next year in the fall cuz that would be awesome. I would love that. Like I'm super excited. I played the hell out of GTA 5. So,
yeah.
looking
I
forward to
mean,
it.
I'm looking forward to GTA 6 as well. I don't. I mean, yeah, I don't know if they can capture the exact same magic they did with GTA 5, but I mean, I'm sure if anybody can do it, Rockstar can. The big
See,
question I think
yeah.
comes from whether or not. Sorry, was I
No,
interrupting
go on.
something? Oh yeah, so I think the big question is whether or not they can have GTA Online 2 perform as well.
Yeah, I'm curious what they're going to do specifically with GTA Online, just because so many people are playing the online. Like, are they going to carry stuff over from there? Are they going to combine the two so you can kind of play it both? Like, I don't know. I'm curious because I don't want to lose my GTA Online progress, but at the same time, I understand like moving over to like a fully updated, like new engine, fully new map, new mechanics. But they went so far with GTA Online. I'd like to see those mechanics return. Like I liked having like my own businesses that I could do jobs for, you know?
I think they'll. If I had to guess, I think they would probably start you over on a clean slate. Essentially, you'd have to
Uh,
grind for all of that again.
do you think they would carry over some of those mechanics though, like the like owning your own building or owning your own businesses or owning your own biker gang or being a CEO and having a bunker, those kinds of things?
If not at launch, then probably sometime down the line in like a
Mhm.
future patch or something.
I really hope so. I really do. Um, Other than the free games, there is one other really great deal that I actually want to talk about, and that is the Monster Hunter bundle from Humble Bundle. So if you don't know about Humble Bundle, this is a website that constantly figures out and puts together games in a bundle, and you pay one set price and you get all those games. They've been doing it for years, and they've used it to raise. They've used those bundles to also raise like money for charity, which is amazing. Uh, and they have some solid bundles, but the most recent one, or one of the most recent ones that I really liked, was actually a Monster Hunter bundle where they put together Monster Hunter World, Monster Hunter Rise, the two expansions, or the expansion for both games. So Iceborne for World and Sunbreak for Rise, and then the deluxe kit for all four of those. And they put it all together in a $30 bundle, which is an incredible deal, especially just for Monster Hunter World. Like Rise is really great, but I know a lot of people really like Monster Hunter World more. And just having that with Sunbreak and the deluxe packs for like I think it's $30 for all of it. It's amazing. It's a really amazing deal.
Yeah, it's a totally bonkers for $30, and Monster Hunter tends to have a lot of great content as well. Even
Oh
just the
yeah.
base game for like Monster Hunter Worlds and Rise
Hmm.
have pretty good content. Granted, I haven't played it as religiously as I have for like since like the last Monster Hunter game I think I've played religiously was Monster Hunter Generations Ultimate,
Hmm.
and
Oh,
that
which is
was a
fun too.
that was a good game. But yeah, I mean, you can't go wrong with Monster Hunter. I don't think
Yeah.
there's a single bad Monster Hunter unless you think stories is bad, but that I think that's just because it's a different type of game altogether.
Yeah. No, I think you have to pay respect to the older ones, but I do really like it's hard to look at Monster Hunter World and not think, okay, this is where they need to head for the rest of the series. Like, and I have a lot of hope for Wilds. If I remember correctly, that's their next title that they announced was Monster Hunter Wilds. And, I have a lot of high hope for it because they basically learned from World, they learned from Rise. You know, Rise didn't have as much to do in the world like, the predecessor did, but I really like that they were trying to incorporate like vertical movement. And I thought the way they did was really interesting. So, hopefully they learn from both games and kind of combine them, and that's what's going to be Wilds.
Wilds is going to be exciting. I really want to play it when it comes out.
Yeah, no, I'm looking forward to it. That's going to be a game. I'm going to beg Capcom to review it. Like that's that's one of those where I'm like, ah, man, I really, really want to play that one.
You're telling me, man. I want to play it too.
No,
Maybe we'll play it together when it comes out, if it comes out.
what do you mean if it
Like,
comes? They might just cancel it for whatever reason. So if it comes out, no, there's no way. It's too big. I think Capcom knows it's so important, and I think they're gonna. Capcom has been reporting, uh, I guess more profits too. Like they're in a golden age right now, and it shows. I mean, the games that they've been releasing have been bangers recently.
and they've been on PC day one, which Square Enix seems to be getting the memo now. Uh,
Yes. No,
not one of our
I'm glad.
topics. Yeah, not one of our topics, but
No, I think
I'm.
it's because we discussed it last episode a little bit too. But in case you missed the last episode, Square Enix it did report losses, and they're shifting to a new strategy. And one of the key elements of that strategy is going multi-platform. So no longer, according to this, they're no longer going to be just doing like PlayStation for like timed exclusives and then go to PC. It sounds like they're just going to be releasing it for like PC, Xbox, Switch, and PlayStation.
Yeah, that sounds like I mean, it sucks that they sustained a pretty big loss, but it's great that they're
Yeah,
going multi-platform.
yeah.
Also,
No,
like related to this. Oh,
mhm.
sorry. Go ahead. I feel like I'm
No,
interrupting you
by
too
all
much.
means.
Yeah, there was an article that came out that claimed that over half of like PlayStation users are still
Mhm.
on PS4.
Yes, I saw that. I think it was like, didn't PlayStation release their like, wasn't it from the PlayStation Network accounts?
Yes, I believe
Yeah.
so.
And they had a certain amount of accounts that they said like we have like, I can't remember the exact number, but like they have like 100 million accounts and there was only like 50 million PS5s that have been sold, which means that the other install base is still on PS4.
It
So
just sounds like
that's
it
pretty
sounds like
interesting.
PS3. It sounds like PS3 all over again, to be honest.
No. But to be honest, the PS5 lineup just is not as exciting as the PS4 lineup. Like there's maybe like one or two games I can think of that are actual PlayStation 5 exclusives, and that's it. Like it's just not like they're still supporting PS4, which is nice, especially because half their user base is on that. But it just doesn't help justify like why someone would upgrade to a PS5. You know?
Yeah, I get it. I understand. And with
What?
Sony's pivot towards PC, it seems like that's only going to be, I don't want to say a detriment to PlayStation, because it seems like they're making record profits with just PC releases, but
Yeah.
it's a
No,
detriment to their hardware sales.
I wouldn't be surprised if PlayStation adopts a more multi-platform. And when I say multi-platform, I mean just PC. But I wouldn't be surprised if they start adopting that more because that I think that's just where it's heading. Like especially as like, when you look at user bases, like I don't think you can beat PC. Like everyone has a computer, and some people choose Xbox, but they also have a computer. So I think they're going to start adopting, putting their games more on PC. And I hope they do because it's awesome to see it there. One of the
Absolutely.
yeah, one of the companies that I'm not a huge fan of right now is EA. And there's a couple of
Mm-mm,
reasons for that.
mm-mm.
Recently, it was reported that they are adding anti-cheat to a racing game of theirs called EA Sports WRC, which will no longer. That means it'll no longer be playable on the Steam Deck. The anti-cheat that they use is a kernel level anti-cheat, which is not supported on Linux operating systems, so it won't be playable on any Linux desktop, but that includes the Steam Deck. So
Ugh.
they've made some fun recent comments lately, like how they want to put advertisements into their games, or they're looking into the possibility of doing that. Um, how they want to find ways to incorporate AI into the development process. Just a really really great rhetoric from them so far. And it's
If
tough
they,
to be it's
mm-mm,
tough to be
mm-mm.
excited. There's some games that they're coming out with that I'm super excited for. I really am. But it's when they say things like that where I'm like starting to feel a little bit of the fatigue of like why do I want to put in my effort into that?
Man, if EA really wanted us to look at advertisements, all they had to do was not add this anti-cheat to the Steam Deck. They could get Steam Deck eyes on those advertisements, right?
You would think so, but I bet they're still going to do it.
Yeah,
Like,
and it just really annoys me how I get it. They must have some sort of data that proves that Linux players are cheaters. I mean, it's not just EA that's doing this though. It's also like Bungie's doing this. Oh
yeah.
yeah, Bungie's
So
doing this, and the
So
final
that's
shape's
the
about to
thing.
come out.
Bungie isn't actually doing kernel level anti cheat though. They just haven't upgraded the Battle Eye anti cheat to support, Linux. And that's actually not even completely true too. You can play Destiny 2 on the Steam Deck on Steam OS. They just boot you out immediately once they detect you're on the Steam Deck. I'm not sure why. I don't think we'll ever know. At least as far as I know, like the speculation's still People just don't know. But I believe Destiny 2 doesn't use kernel level anti-cheat, and it can technically launch and run on the Steam Deck.
Yeah, I mean, I think I've seen videos of people bypassing the anti-cheat to play on the Steam Deck. I mean, obviously they would get banned,
Yeah.
but they did it as a point to prove that yes, the Steam Deck is more than capable of playing Destiny 2. And I think one more thing too is that there have been more and more developers seemingly blocking off Linux support. Like
Mhm.
I know Roblox actually
Yeah.
recently blocked off Linux support. They claimed that they let wine users play Roblox during like a grace period, and they thought that if they didn't take advantage of it, then they could do it. But it seems like the excuse now is that there were cheaters, too many cheaters, taking advantage of the fact that you could just cheat in Linux. Apparently, like I would
Mhm.
love to see the data. I don't doubt that there would be some people out there switching to Linux to cheat, but I just want to see the data. I just want to see the irrefutable evidence they have that Linux gamers are apparently all cheaters.
Yeah. I mean, I doubt they think that all of all Linux gamers are cheaters, but like I would like to know like the actual numbers of like how many are cheating on Linux, how many are cheating on Windows, because even when Linux isn't supported because of cheating, it still feels like there's a ton of cheaters in the games. So like what did they stop? And then they're basic, so why not use something like, easy anti-cheat or Battle Live, which do support Linux and they still, work, and just use that. Like I don't understand why they need to block off, Linux completely, and no one seems to be releasing the data or like showing data as to justify doing something like that.
Like I get if they don't want to support Linux because that's just another platform that they have to support, even if it's not them,
Yeah.
porting the game over. I understand that. If that were the case, then I think they should just say it. But
Yeah.
the thing that really like I don't understand is that they do all of this and people can just make new accounts on Windows, and I've seen people do that. They ban
Hmm.
a cheater, and then the cheater just makes a brand new account, and it's a plague among free to play titles.
Yeah.
Not to mention, there are some crazy people. I remember this. There were people that would buy like bulk keys en masse. I remember people used to do this for Counter Strike Global Offensive, CS:GO.
Mm.
Back before it was a free to play, it used to be $15.
Yeah.
They would buy multiple keys, and they would just have multiple accounts ready to switch to when their account got banned, which I think is
Yeah.
absolutely ridiculous that they would spend hundreds and hundreds of dollars on multiple keys for the game. It's a
Hmm.
crazy thing to think about it, but it absolutely does happen,
It's just weird.
and it's weird behavior. But it's also like they do this stuff on
Hmm.
Windows. They don't do this on Linux.
Yeah. I just don't. It's true they do it. I don't know. I don't know the justification. I would love to talk to someone who's done that and just ask them why. Like I'm not gonna like shit on them for it, but just why? Why do it? You know,
Mm,
it
I don't
doesn't
know.
make a lot of sense to me.
And I'd also like, and it would also be nice to hear something from someone that actually does anti cheat, and to see the data.
Yeah. No, I would like to know. I would like to know about that. But I do want to take a quick pivot. We just talked about, EA, and that wasn't great. And how they're kind of killing one of their games on the Steam Deck. But there are two games that are adding some new updates that are going to make it much more playable on the Steam Deck, especially when you want to play portably. So, Wayfinder got a new update, or it's getting a new update called the Wayfinder Echoes update. And it's changing the entire structure of the game. So it released as an MMO, it had microtransactions, and it's a third person action game where you were working with a team and you were fighting enemies, getting new gear, leveling up, etc., etc. The Echoes update changes it from an MMO to a fully offline, like single player slash co op game. So They're making it playable and offline. They're taking out the MMO parts of it, so microtransactions are gone, and is going to make it so that it can exist even when there aren't any servers online for it. It seems that this update came because the original publisher, who was also hosting the servers for it, um, basically cut the contract, which I don't think it was like, a shady move or anything like that. They just dropped the contract once they were able to. And it when the game came back to the original developers, which is Airship Syndicate. So they're completely changing the game to be a fully offline playable single player experience, no microtransactions, online co-op with up to 3 other players, using peer-to-peer networks. And that should generally make it much more playable on the Steam Deck, especially portably, like when you might not have internet. So I really like that. I know that a lot of people might feel slighted by that because they bought the game when it was an MMO, but it's as a Steam Deck user, I am kind of very excited that they're making a decision like that because um, I do enjoy these kinds of games, where you're constantly going through dungeons, you're working with friends to destroy monsters. You get weapon drops from randomized drops. Armor has stats now, so you can kind of build your character. I think they're adding in traditional RPG elements to it. Um, there's no grind for new characters anymore, so you get all the characters. There's housing item, like you can build your own house basically. Uh, increase limits so you can make even bigger houses. There's a lot that they're doing with it, and I'm actually very excited to see the new update. Which for founders, if you already own the game, founders are going to get the update May 31st, and then the game is going back on sale on Steam Early Access on June 11th for $24.99. So excited for that one.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard all the hubbub about how bad Redfall was, and I mean, have any of the prior updates made it a better game? Because I mean, I'm not
For
trying to shit
Wayfinder,
on Arcane. Oh, for Wayfinder, no, I sorry, that was my bad.
I didn't bring up the other game yet.
Oh, oh, spoiler alert.
You just went right to
Uh,
it. Yeah, the other game is Redfall, which we saw in a tweet today, or a post. I'm still calling it tweets. A post today from the official Redfall account on X that the next update for Redfall, which is the final update, is going to be adding an offline mode to Redfall, which will make it just like Wayfinder will make it much more playable on the Steam Deck when you're going around and you don't have internet. I always like to celebrate offline modes because I feel like single player experiences should have that. And I think Redfall could technically be played alone, but it's nice to officially have that even if, the developer Arcane Austin is shutting down.
yeah, I mean, so now I get to ask my original question.
Yeah.
Have the prior updates made Redfall a better game? I know there was a lot of hubbub surrounding how Redfall
Yeah.
wasn't the best, and I think it is unfortunate too because I actually got the opportunity to play Prey. I think, and a lot of people really liked like me checking out Prey for the first time because I've heard so much about it being a excellent game, and having played it now for a little bit, I still haven't beaten the game yet.
Hmm.
But
It's great.
Ravensteel's been stealing up all my time, no pun
Hmm.
intended. But Prey, oh man, I love Prey so much. It's such a good game. It feels almost criminal that they were. I don't know if they were forced to make Redfall like a live service, not MMO, but MMO
I
ish
would I
thing.
would say they were. Like I don't think there's many developers that actually want to make games like that. I think I remember reading something about like, who do we like blame for all the live service games? Do we blame the developers who are building them or do we blame the publishers who want them to be built? And I think most developers don't want to make live service games. I think they feel fatigued from it. There's so many of them. It's a lot of work and just continued development. The reason they do it is because the publishers want them to do it. And I think there was a report that came out and I can't remember which studio it was, but it was Suicide Squad. Suicide Squad was pitched from Rocksteady as a live service game. And they were kind of debating, like, oh, so then do we blame Rocksteady for it being a live service game? And I don't think so. I think Rocksteady pitched it as a live service game because they knew that's what the publisher wanted. Like, because that's what all publishers want for some reason. And actually, I say for some reason, but it's probably because they're making tons of money from it. But I'm pretty sure. Like, do you blame Rocksteady for pitching a game pitching a live service game when they know that probably the only way they're going to secure the funding for it and get the publisher on board is to have it be a live service game? Is it really their fault then?
Yeah, I cannot blame you. Cannot blame. I cannot blame Rocksteady for this because I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, it's like you said, WB really wants that live service money, despite the fact
Mhm.
that they are capable of publishing really popular and really well performing games like single player games without
Mhm.
microtransactions, like Hogwarts Legacy.
Yeah.
Like that beat out Call of Duty and or a Rockstar game,
Mhm.
and that's a rarity in the industry these days. But yeah, it's just it just baffles me to see that they're learning the wrong. Yeah, they're learning the wrong lessons. They
Mhm.
learned what they learned from Suicide Squad. They learned that they need to make more live service games. But I mean,
Yeah, it's weird that they're doubling down on it after seeing how Hogwarts Legacy performed versus Suicide Squad, and they're doubling down on Suicide Squad. Like, don't get me wrong, I actually do like Suicide Squad as a game, not as a live service game. Take out the live service element, and I actually really like Suicide Squad. Like, I think it's a pretty fun game to play, but the live service stuff just doesn't seem necessary. And there's just so many live service games, like, we don't have the time to play all of them. Like, please stop giving us that. I want a contained experience. And while I wasn't I could see why Hogwarts Legacy was so good, I'm not personally the biggest fan of it, but
yeah,
I
yeah, I
could I
agree.
could respect it, and I see why it's good, and I want more games like that. You know? I wish they learned, you know, to go go for that, please. Because it's a weird
I
one.
mean, thankfully we do have some developers making games
Mhm.
that are huge, like risks that, and they have mechanics that you could probably never put in a game made for the masses, like Dragon's
Yeah.
Dogma 2. I love
Yeah.
Dragon's Dogma 2.
Oh,
It's
it's
a super
fantastic.
polarizing game, but I love it.
Oh, yeah. No, it's fantastic.
But I think I don't know, man. I think it's just weird that they would do this. And I mean, a
Yeah.
lot of publishers learned, like I remember back in like the early 2000s when WoW got really popular, everyone tried to
Mhm.
make their own WoW clan. And I
Yeah.
guess all these developers learned how expensive making an MMO can really be. And
Mhm.
I think live service games are, I don't know if they're as expensive or almost more expensive at this point.
Mhm.
But I mean, I hope that they learn that these are insanely expensive failures. I mean, Suicide Squad lost $200 million.
A lot of money. Yeah.
It's that's more money than I'll ever make in my life. But
Yeah,
but
no,
I mean,
it's a lot.
it's crazy to me that they don't see just how much this stuff costs. And the law
Mhm.
and it's and I hope that study that I think I mentioned, I don't know if I mentioned this earlier in the show or before the show, but I mentioned the study where like 60% of like all game time is being spent in older titles. All of these
Mhm.
older live service games that have their hooks grained into people. They're trying to make a game that'll appeal to those types of people, but how can you pull away those people from their own games? How are you going to pull someone away from like Minecraft
Yeah.
or like League of Legends? How do you pull someone like that away? Right?
Mhm. No,
It's
it's
impossible.
it is impossible. But look, it's I'm not I man, it's just devastating. It's just consistently devastated in the industry and some of the decisions that some of these bigger studios are making. And I think it was the same thing. I think it was the same thing with Redfall. I think Redfall probably I think Arcane wanted it to be more uh, closer to like Left 4 Dead, where it's more of a offline multiplayer experience where you're just going through levels, you're killing enemies. It really seemed like they were going for like a Left 4 Dead edge to it. But I bet it's something that the higher ups wanted. They wanted to incorporate like live service elements to it, and it turned into what it is now.
I've heard they wanted to implement like like immersive sim elements, like
Oh, really?
Dishonored or Prey. Yeah, I've heard that.
Oh, oh, that would have been cool. I was just going based off the whole like 4 players, all first person, just how it overall looks. But if they were going for like immersive sim, like Dishonored or like Deathloop, like I would love that. That would have been
Like
awesome.
like I don't have confirmation of this myself. I just
Mhm.
remember hearing about this. And I've also heard that there are some certain aspects of immersive sim elements in Redfall. Now, personally, I haven't played
Mhm.
Redfall myself, and I cannot confirm nor deny these. I
Gotcha.
That's just what I've heard.
Gotcha. Well, I've played a little bit of it. I haven't played. I mean, I played enough to see like where I had to put it down. Where I was like, no, I'm not into this. I've had those moments, but like, I honestly, I would have loved it to be an immersive sim. Like that would have been so cool. But it's unfortunate that it wasn't, and hopefully, hopefully that will change. I mean, it won't change, but hopefully, like the mindsets of these bigger developers will change, and they see that we don't need tons of live service games. Please just make some more refined offline or multiplayer experiences that doesn't need to constantly get new content and battle passes and all this other BS. It's draining wallets, and I understand why as a business they're doing it, but it's just hurting the consumer's trust.
On the topic of on the topic of live service titles, I mean, there's also Multiverses that's coming back out at some point this month.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm looking forward to that. I actually am. I thought it was decent, but just no more live service. I feel the fatigue from it. I don't want to keep playing live service games. I I want some more experiences that I can play from start to finish. And if there's expansions, great. Then I can go back in and play those expansions and then I'm done. And if I want a game where I can play over and over, there's roguelikes. And those games aren't live service and they're designed to be like having very addictive gameplay loops where you keep going back for more. And I
And they also have a defined ending too.
yeah. Like I can kind of see the appeal for wanting live service games, especially if you're a consumer, because then you can get like you're kind of guaranteed to continually get more content, which is nice. But at the same time, just I don't want that. I want to be able to finish a game sometimes. And if I don't, then I'll play a roguelike. And a lot of roguelikes do still have a definitive end. So it's like, I don't know. I don't want more live service games. And to some degree I understand why companies want to do it and why it could be something interesting for consumers, but I'm done. I would like a pause on them for a little bit.
Absolutely, yes. I Well said. And the point about endings, I totally agree with it. I think a lot of the reason why people bounce off of like live service titles is that they bounce off with a very negative outlook. It's like The
Mhm.
Simpsons. Like, think about it. The Simpsons used to be this like it used to be avant garde. It used to be like some of the greatest television ever televised in America,
Mhm.
and it's like a live service game. It's just keep going on, and the ratings get lower and lower, but
Yeah.
it's still going on these days. And I think a lot of people, and I think The Simpsons would have been looked at more fondly had it, had a ending. If like the
Mhm.
Simpsons movie was like the grand finale of the series, I think people would look back fondly on it.
Yeah.
But like because it has no ending, I mean, people kind of just hate it now. And like
Yeah.
the same, and I think the same with like a lot of live service games. Like most people don't bounce off of live service games with a positive outlook on the game, they bounce off of it with a very negative outlook. Like think of
Hmm.
all the people that used to play League of Legends that claim that they hate League of Legends. You ever see someone
There's a
that
lot of
quit
them.
playing League of Legends? You ever see someone that quit League of Legends that said that they still like the game? Probably rarely, right?
Yeah, no,
Yeah. See, you see where I'm
I
getting
have
at,
not.
right?
I do. I see exactly what you're getting at. Yeah.
Yeah, it's. I mean, they don't really have to care about the emotions of the players or even really the
Hmm.
sentiment of the game after they quit because they're not making any money off of those players anymore. But I mean, it's just an interesting thing to think about.
I agree. But on to a different topic. I actually want to ask you. So I didn't do too much research into this, and I usually don't like to touch leaks too much. That's not something I usually cover on Steam Deck HQ unless it's like a very reputable leak. But there's been a lot of talk going around about Valve's next game, and I don't know too much about it. But have you done some research and like looked into it and seen like what is that people are saying about it?
I have. So there's a Valve insider on Twitter. I mean X, formerly Twitter, called Gabe Follower, and
Hmm.
he's posting a lot of screenshots about this new game called Deadlock. It used to be known as Neon Prime, and I think
Hmm.
there was a time when people were trying to figure out what Neon Primes was. I think I've heard some speculation, anything from Valve's version of Game Pass to like a new game to like new hardware, and I think it's
Hmm.
pretty clear what it is now. It's supposed to be a 6v6 hero shooter that features a MOBA style map, but with 4 lanes and tower defense mechanics. So basically, just a MOBA.
Hmm.
And I mean, on one hand, it kind of looks cool. There's no like gameplay in motion, so it's hard to know what the game looks like when it's actually being played. I
Hmm.
mean, the game kind of looks like a mix of Overwatch and TF2, believe it or not.
Hmm.
And there's some characters that have been shown off. There's this guy. I don't even know what he looks like. He's like an explosives dude, but I'm not sure. I
Hmm.
can't tell from the screenshot. There's another screenshot showing this guy named Grey Talon, who is an archer that has a like laser bow. And I can't tell what his skills do, but I mean, it says here he's a cunning predator. Grey Talon uses a combination of deadly accuracy, traps, and clever positioning to bring down the toughest of opponents.
Hmm.
And okay, and there's another character. It looks like this is a spectator mode. I'm not sure. And there's the map. I think it's supposed to be like in third person though, not first person. So it's not quite like Overwatch or Valorant.
Hmm.
And I think it's interesting that Valve is going back to making a live service game. We just
What
talked
a
about live
coincidence!
service games too.
What a coincidence! Though I will say, of all the companies that can make live service games, I actually trust Valve a lot more than most others. So if I had to say, like, if I had to list studios that I would be okay with trying a live service game, I would probably say Valve is on that list.
It was also it was also reported that essentially it was also reported that the guy that's behind Dota 2, Ice Frog, was also working on Neon Prime for a little bit before working on Dota 2 once again.
Hmm.
And a lot of these screenshots seem to be leaks from playtesters, and according to Tyler McVicker, aka Valve News Network,
Hmm.
Valve doesn't really seem to do hard NDAs, at least not for playtesters. It seems apparently they just do like a hey, don't leak this, please, okay, but it's not like a formal agreement, so like people don't really care if it's not like written in a contract.
Okay. I mean
And
that's kind of rude to do then. I think for respect of Valve, I'm not going to post like in like when if you're watching this, I'm not going to post any screenshots or links to any of this kind of stuff just out of respect for Valve you know, in that instance. It's interesting to hear what they're working on next though. And I really I enjoy almost all of Valve's games. I would say all of them, but I don't really play Dota. Um but all of Valve's titles are great in some aspect. So I'm optimistic about whatever title is coming next. But it's interesting that they've decided to go this route. I wouldn't have expected it, especially from the games that they have made. So I'm curious to see. I like when they try new things though, and they've done that consistently. Like we on our last episode, we talked about the Steam Machine, a new Steam Machine coming, and that was a very new concept that they were really trying to push, and it failed, but they tried. And then they have the Steam controller, which at the time I don't know any other controllers that use two trackpads for like in place of the analog stick and the D pad. So no, that was interesting. Um, or it might have been the analog stick and the ABXY buttons, or maybe
Yeah,
not.
these
Not the
it,
ABXY.
the, it actually
I don't have
replaced
my
the
Steam.
D-pad. It actually replaced the left D-pad, not the analog stick.
Yeah. See, I should know that. Like I have two Steam controllers and they're around here, but I can't reference them clearly. But I like that they try new things. Even if they fail. I mean, the Steam Deck was a very new thing for them too, and you know, see how that turned out. And then they went to VR and they tried it out with the HTC Vive, and then they made their own index, and they keep on innovating to some degree. So I'm excited. I'm really happy for that, and I'm excited to see what they're going to do next, and I'm looking with optimism because I feel like they've earned that. Like I trust their judgment, and if this is where the direction they want to head, I feel like there has to be some. They must be doing their testing to some degree. You know what I mean?
I think Valve knows how to design a game, but
Yeah.
I think the question is whether or not people will actually flock over to that game because at this point there's more and more live service games out there. A lot more
Yeah.
than like when Dota 2 or like
Yeah.
CS:GO was released.
No, that's true. That is true. But I would say I'm still optimistic. If anyone can get me to try a new live service game, it would be Valve. Like there's not many companies I would say could do it, but Valve probably.
Well,
Um
yeah, I'll give this game a shot if it ever like makes it out of testing.
yeah. One last topic I actually want to go over before the episode ends is a little rant of mine. About the new announcement for the ROG Ally X.
Oh boy.
And um so recently, I think it was like last week, Asus or ROG, Republic of Gamers, hosted a stream where they went over a little bit about their next ROG Ally. It was very small and they barely went over any information about it. But it's called the ROG Ally X and it's the next handheld from Asus. Now, it is reported that there are going to be some decent enhancements to it, like a much bigger battery. They're changing around the internals. They're updating a lot of the aspects of it. No performance or screen changes, but they are updating it to make it feel better. Um, they're moving the micro SD card slot around. They have a bigger battery, and it's going to be more expensive. They did say that. And the ROG Ally is already pretty expensive. So more expensive is already kind of a turnoff for me. But hearing about that announcement made me appreciate Valve so much more with the Steam Deck, specifically the LCD to the OLED. And Valve has gone on record saying countless times that they don't want to make a new generation of, a Steam Deck until there is like a sizable performance difference. And not many other companies I know take that kind of stance because they, need to make more products. And we've seen that a lot with like Ioneo, where they have like six handhelds in a year, and most of them all have the same most of them all
Oh,
have the same chip with some
oh
like design
God.
differences. Yeah, I know. I will say, Ioneo, I love your creativity though. I love their creativity. Like their slide
Yeah.
was nice, and I like that you could like move the screen. You could angle the screen a little bit. I wish it could angle a little bit more, but something's better than nothing. But their flip, I love their flip. They sent over the dual screen, the one where it's basically a giant DS, and I loved it. Like I absolutely adored it. And it wasn't perfect. It wasn't perfect at all, but it is quite possibly one of my favorite handhelds outside of the Steam Deck to use because it's just such a cool concept, and I see so many uses for having two screens like that. But that's Neo. ROG is not doing anything like that. They're not trying to do new things or break the mold. So, you know, that update going from the ROG Ally to the ROG Ally X just didn't sit with me. Like it didn't excite me. Like the bigger battery is very nice, and if they go massive with it, that'd be great. But they're still using Windows, which means they can't utilize the battery in an efficient way like the Steam Deck can because of Steam OS. So more than likely, the Steam Deck LCD will probably still have better battery life than the ROG Ally X, depending on how big the battery is. Um, with the Steam Deck to the Steam Deck OLED, we also had basically a complete redesign of the entire device. They even did change up the APU a little bit, still the same power, but they've made it a little bit smaller and a little bit more efficient. But they changed out the screen to be one that just cannot be matched by any other handheld. No handheld has an OLED HDR screen, and I think that's phenomenal. So no, that's massive just by itself. But they changed up the entire cooling, so it's significantly nicer to hold in your hands and doesn't get hot or nearly as hot as the LCD can. It's got Wi-Fi 6E support. We have a bigger battery, which with SteamOS is a big change. It's just overall like they have like a whole change log on the Steam Deck OLED page about what they did to like overhaul, the Steam Deck OLED. And it just made me appreciate like they made it into a compelling device that made me want to upgrade from the LCD to the OLED and not feel like I'm wasting money. And yeah, it was a little bit more expensive, going from like if you were going from the most expensive version of the LCD going to the OLED, I think it was like $100 difference, which it is a lot, but they're still relatively cheap compared to other handhelds. Um, but it was worth it. The changes were massive. With the ROG Ally X, I don't feel compelled to update it or upgrade it. Like there's no reason for me to do that. I don't see a reason why, you know?
Yeah. So the ROG Ally X is an interesting conundrum. Well, first before I talk about that, I want to talk about Aya Neo's. Which of the Aya Neo devices didn't have a headphone jack? Was it the Slide or the
The
DS?
slide does not have a headphone jack now.
Okay, first of all, why? It's not even that thin.
That's true. It's a little bit weird that the slide does not have a headphone jack. Hold on, I actually have it right here. I'm gonna take a quick look.
It's supposed to be like a
Yeah,
reference to
there's
like older phones with
no.
a headphone jack.
I know.
And
There is no headphone jack on it. But real quick, I have the flip here as well. And yeah, no headphone jack right there.
okay,
So the flip,
this
they seem to like backtrack on it a little bit, and it is on the bottom. The headphone
I
jack
mean
is right there.
that's good because that thing's like a thick boy. Like there's no
Oh
way.
yeah, it's very thick. It doesn't seem like it would be comfortable to hold, but it is actually very comfortable to hold in my hands. I do, and again, I like the concept for it because it's just really cool having like a dual screen handheld. Again, Neo, great concept and very creative. It's just very hard to enjoy it because it's, you know, they
I,
keep
I
they keep making so many devices and they all have the same power.
it's kind of insane to me that they would do this because,
Yeah.
I mean, I get it. INE is a hardware device. They got to make more hardware, but they could just make the same hardware but with a slightly upgraded processor. I guarantee you some people would buy that.
Yeah. No, I'm sure people would. It's just, again, but again, I like their creativity. I do.
Yeah. I just hope that they don't have to create six more brand new models after this.
They keep every single like line that they have. They're still making a ton new. I actually like the direction that they went. They seem to have kind of chilled out on making Windows handhelds and started going into the Android or emulation space, which I think actually works really well for them because they've done a lot in the Windows handhelds and they've got tons of different versions of it. And I respect that. And there's just a lot of them. But when it comes to Androids and when it comes to like emulation or Linux devices that are designed for emulation, there's a lot of different form factors. And some appeal to some people and some appeal to others. Like Anbernic's new um R what is it? The
The
RG35 or XX something. Honestly, I don't know exactly what it's called. But
great
the
model
new
name,
one
by
that
the way.
basically looks like a Game Boy Advance SP.
I saw
And
it. It looks awesome.
I
I
know
want
it
one.
does. I'm very tempted to buy it. I'm very, very tempted to buy it, especially now that I'm looking at it. And today is the last day to. Oh wait, the start time is today. Never mind. The 20th. So they have $6 off for the first 3 days for this one. I'm very tempted, especially with the reviews glowing for it.
Do it.
It's just
Handheld HQ.
uh God. See, I would love to. I plan to get to do pick up handheld HQ again very soon. It's just there's for some reference, handheld HQ is our sister site and is geared towards all other handhelds. So that one is where we would cover the Ally, Legion Go, the MSI Claw, Android devices like the RG35 XS SP and the uh, like the Odin 2. All those devices would be covered over there with some news and reviews and all that. It isn't as it doesn't have as much traffic as Steam Deck HQ does. And because there's so much happening with Steam Deck HQ right now, it's too much for me to handle all on my own. So it's basically on pause, but it's still something we're going to do. And I would love to get more into it, but it's just we're just too busy. Like we're
I
constantly
understand.
reviewing games. We have a lot being worked on when it comes to like our videos. We have the podcast, um, and events like Summer Games Fest. There's just too much going on right now that our small team can't do it, and I would rather wait until we have a lot more and not half-ass it.
Absolutely, I understand. That's a respectable take on the situation.
No. It's sad
And
because I really like handheld HQ and I like what we're doing with it. It's just I don't want to burn myself out and spread myself too thin, which could cause like some issues with like maybe some stuff we can't cover for Steam Deck HQ, which as the bigger site, I want to prioritize.
that's absolutely valid. I
Yeah,
think back to the RG Ally, the
yeah,
topic. Yeah, the RG Ally X. It's an interesting one because it's very clear that they have a similar stance to Valve. I think they said that they don't want to make an RG Ally 2 that isn't substantially
yeah.
more powerful, which is commendable because they're the second company to have said this. We don't know if Lenovo's going to do this or if we know Ioneo's not going to do it or GPD.
Yeah.
none of the ones from China are going to do it, but we don't know if Lenovo will follow suit or not.
Mm-hmm.
But what we do know is that the Ally X is, it's like a sidestep. I understand that people want OLED in the Ally X, but they have variable refresh rate, and both
Yeah.
technologies, from what I've read, seem to be diametrically opposed. There's an issue with something called variable refresh rate
Mm-hmm.
flicker, and it happens. There's a lot of OLED monitors with VRR, and you can see it. Like it, like flickers in and out the brightness because it has to change the brightness as well. And there's a great video by Ratings on this,
Mm-hmm.
and if I'm not mistaken, Linus Tech Tips actually mentioned this in a video in relation to the Steam Deck OLED as
Hmm.
to why they didn't implement variable refresh rate in the Steam Deck OLED, because it seems like that would have been something that they would have done. That seemed that
Yeah.
that was planned. They obviously didn't go through. It was mentioned in a Linus Tech Tips video. The name of the video escapes me, but I remember. I don't know if it was their podcast or actually one of their videos, but I remember it being specifically mentioned. You
Mm-hmm.
could probably reach out to them and ask, but Valve or Linus or whatever. But they did mention it in public, so it's not like private information. And also, so I think the Ally X being more expensive though is unfortunate, because they could have done a Steam Deck OLED and just made it the same price as the current one, and then just lowered the price of the current one to like the price of the Z1 normal model, and then maybe just phase that one out entirely.
Yeah, it would have been better if they did that. 'Cause the other thing is that the Ally is already on the high end of the price range. Like the regular Ally is still more expensive than the Steam Deck OLED. And with the OLED, it's not as powerful, but you're getting a lot more benefits in other areas, like the battery life, like the screen. And in this regards, it depends on what your preference is. Do you want VRR or OLED HDR? Me, I go to OLED HDR. I prefer the colors and being able to change the refresh rate manually, going from 0 to 90. Or not 0 to 90, 30 to 90. Mm. But it's just there to me, like they were already on the high end, so going more expensive, like it just it's going to be very hard for those who already have an Ally to justify purchasing the Ally X. I don't know if a lot of people are going to do it. I guess we'll have to see what the entire slate of changes is before making a judgment, but just based on what they've said and what's been reported so far, it doesn't seem like it's one that would be a compelling to upgrade, like the Steam Deck LCD to the OLED. It just doesn't seem like there's enough to justify paying more than $700, which is already a lot. Paying more than $700 to get a bigger battery, some in like the micro SD card moving, it being more comfortable to hold. I believe it's gonna weigh more too. I believe that
Yes.
was mentioned that it's going to weigh more, which is definitely the opposite direction. Like, yeah, the Steam Deck OLED only weighs like 5% less than it did before, but I feel the difference. Like it's more comfortable to hold in my hands. So they needed to go the opposite direct. They needed to go and make it less. They needed to make it way less, and they didn't do that. The Ally X. So I guess we won't know until we see everything, but it sounds like they're kind of going in the wrong direction with some of the things that would make it more playable, like easier to like use. Rather, they're just trying to fit in features and like upgrade it to the point that like they're sacrificing too much.
I understand. Yeah, so the weight thing definitely is a bummer.
Yeah.
And while I'm not convinced that it would make it heavier than the Steam Deck OLED, I do agree that you could probably feel the difference if you held it in your
Mhm.
hands, like side by side. I don't know
So
how
you
much of a
think
difference it'll be.
so
I'm
you
sorry, what
think
do you
the
say?
Ally X you think the Ally X is going to still weigh less than the OLED?
I think it's. I think it could go either way. Honestly, without the hard numbers, it's hard for me to make a a good educated guess. But I will say the Ally they did mention they claim that here's the exact quote.
Mhm.
We're not looking at 30 to 40% more capacity, he tells me. We're looking at way more than that. Way more could be anything between 41% and like 100% more battery.
100% more battery. If they go to an 80 watt hour battery, I would be I'll say it, I would be impressed, but I still don't think it would really make a huge difference. It sounds like it on paper, but take the Ionia Kun for instance. That's a 75 watt hour battery. It's a massive battery, but it still doesn't have the best battery life. And it's because of Windows. And I don't think I'd putting in like maybe if you take the Ally X and put on like Bazite or Chimera, like yeah, those are lightweight Linux operating systems. I think you'll get way more out of the battery than any other device at that point. But using Windows, it uses up too much battery, or there's too many background processes that use up too much battery, and it's just not feasible to get like a good battery life out of Windows handhelds. So I have my worries in that regard.
Yeah. I do want to get the ROG Ally X for one reason, to battery
Hmm.
test it.
Okay, well,
Yeah, okay,
to
but
test it, yeah. But let's say, like, what would you say? Like, what if it was going to be priced more? What is the highest price you would go to purchase an Ally X?
how much is the MSRP for the original Ally right now?
700. Or which one are you talking about? The Z1 or Z1 Extreme?
The Z1 Extreme.
Seven. It should be. It should still be 699.
All right, then I'll just say 799.
So you would pay an extra $100,
I'm not saying I
which,
would pay an extra $100. I'm just saying that's probably what it's going to be.
but how much, how like, what is the highest you would pay, like personally?
Like maybe $50 more. That sounds
So you would
unreasonable, I
you would go
know.
to you would go to 750.
If it depends on how much more battery life we get, and also that's basically it, because it's a black RG Ally. It
Yeah,
doesn't. Yeah, it looks like an MSI Claw, which in turn looks like a black RG Ally, which is kind of stupid if you really think about it.
yeah. I know they're very similar.
But
No,
I mean,
it
I'm not sure I'd really buy it myself, to be honest. Outside of making
so
content, of course. But yeah,
so you wouldn't feel justified, like, if you weren't making content, you would not feel any inclination to upgrade.
not on the onset. Maybe if we get some more details on June 2nd, which they said that would be when we get more information.
Yeah.
Maybe if the information is more substantial, I might be compelled to pay like $100 more.
Mhm.
But as it stands right now, it's too uncertain.
I will say that just the whole announcement stream for it was so dumb. Like, they only announced like two aspects of it, and like one of them wasn't related to it. One of them was like an armory crate update, and the other one was just like, oh, it'll have more battery. And that's basically it. That they gave more detail to The Verge for their article versus the actual stream, which is just weird. Like, I'm glad they gave more information to The Verge, but why? Why? I don't know. But either way, all they've done is make me appreciate Valve and how they handled a mid-generation refresh for their handheld. Like, I think like with the Steam Deck OLED, it prompted not only new people to purchase the device, but also people who already have the device to upgrade. And it feels like the Ally X doesn't do enough to justify an upgrade. And if it's priced too high, it might turn off people from even buying the Ally X. So I feel like they really need to make some solid changes to justify it, because right now it just doesn't feel like it's there. And with Valve going from the LCD to the OLED, there's such massive changes that fundamentally change how you use the device and what you see. And I think that's an extremely important part of doing a mid-generation refresh if you're going to do it. I don't know if ROG is going to wait for a sizable jump in performance to do an Ally 2. And I'm worried about that because most device makers like, ROG, they don't sell their devices at a loss. They can't. Valve can. So once sales of the device start to go, they kind of have to do another one, which is why I think they're doing the Ally X. So they were able to stave off doing a mid-generation or I guess a new model a year by doing this mid-generation one. But I am worried that they're going to basically say, "Oh, it's something similar to like, oh, the 8840U is a jump in performance," when not really. Like it does improve performance in some aspects, but not enough to justify a generational jump. So I'm worried that they might do something like that. But, you know, I'll give them the benefit of the doubt. I'm willing to wait and see. I don't feel compelled to buy the Ally X. I would probably just do the Steam Deck OLED personally, just because the battery life is probably going to be just as good, if not better, in the OLED. Screen's going to be more colorful, and we have HDR support. It's probably going to be much cooler and weigh around the same, and it costs significantly less. So
Yeah, I think like I get it. Some people can't live without variable refresh rate, but I think the OLED is just a better trade off. To be honest,
yeah.
now if Valve could figure out how to get VR working on an OLED display without it having to have VR flicker,
Mm-hmm.
then that would make the Steam Deck a killer product. I mean, not to say that it isn't already.
Yeah.
I mean, God forbid, but it's just there's just a lot of people assuming that the RG Ally X is going to be a true successor, and they really should just have. Sorry, let me start over. Let me start over.
Okay.
I don't know where I'm going with this. Basically,
It's all good.
the OLED is a great product. I mean, Valve. It's basically a new hardware all the way on the inside. It has a very similar performance profile to, say, the original Steam Deck. Maybe
Mm-hmm.
slightly better due to the faster RAM, but it's not a huge difference.
No.
But I think what mattered, but I think that at the end of the day, the OLED is just a better product because it's lighter, it has a better screen, and it's not just the OLED or the color accuracy. It's also 90 hertz as well. I know a lot of games can't make full use of the 90 hertz display. Like you would never run Cyberpunk at 90 FPS, but it's just a nice to have for those games that do, like all the indie games,
Yeah.
which is what I primarily play on my Steam Deck, anyways. It's just I don't know what Asus is doing. I don't know if they should have made an RG Ally X, or if maybe they should have waited, or if maybe they should have made an RG Ally 2, but with a Z1.5, a
Mm-hmm.
Z1.5 Extreme. Do you think that would have been better if they had just upgraded to a similar to an Ally 2 with like an
Instead of doing
88?
the X?
Yes, instead of doing the X.
No, I don't think so. I think marketing it instead of being the next generation as a mid generation and not doing a huge overhaul, I personally like that more. But I see more benefits of it. Like I think it's a very hard sustainable, like a very hard to sustain system if you're not making money from like software sales that can offset the costs. Like Valve can do that. They run Steam. But no other company can really do that except for like maybe Xbox could or Epic could. But, Xbox I'm sure is cooking up something, though. We don't know yet.
Yeah, and we haven't even talked about the very recent controversy with Asus, especially in regards to RMA services. Have you watched the Gamers Nexus video on that?
I haven't, but I have heard. I believe I've heard some of the issues with it.
Yeah, it's crazy. It came out. It's I don't want to say it's perfect timing, but it's really convenient timing. I don't know, man. It's just Asus doing this stuff makes it hard for most customers to trust them, and not just for like the RG Ally, but also
Mhm.
like motherboards and like graphics cards and stuff.
Just really quickly, do you want to go over what it is that came out?
Yeah, so basically, Gamers Nexus made a video in regards to their warranty experience with Asus, and they also covered some other experiences as well. Essentially, what had happened is that their left joystick doesn't function anymore. They claim it only goes up and down, and
Mhm.
they sent it in for repairs, RMA, and there was a lot of weirdness with the RMA process. For starters, if you put a password on your system, they ask you to put the password down on a piece of paper and your BIOS password as well, which isn't really that safe. And Gamers Nexus claimed that you should just take the hard drive out of the RG Ally before you send it in for RMAs.
Mhm.
And so they did that, and then apparently Asus found a ding on the RG Ally, like in on the top of the shell, like near the buttons, like the power, the rocker, volume rocker, and power. And there was
Mhm.
like a small little ding, but they essentially would have charged Gamers Nexus like $100 and something to replace the LCD display for that, and that's not even what they sent it in for. And the wording on the RMA form made it seem like they would have to pay it, or that the RG Ally could come back disassembled, which wouldn't be an issue for Asus, but it would be a problem for like a normal person.
Yeah.
And they eventually managed to get their free RMA service for the right stick, and they also repaired the SD card issue that was a known issue, and that Asus apparently by default just replaces all of those micro SD card slots. But
Mhm.
yeah, so I'm sorry about that. There was an
No worries.
interruption. I got some family over. Anyways, what I was saying is that basically they got the service done, but it just felt like they were being extortioned by Gamers Nexus. I mean, not by Gamers Nexus, by
By
Asus
Asus. Yeah.
to pay a fee that for a repair that they didn't specify, that they didn't want,
Well,
and
that's shitty.
it really is. I mean, I've heard of similar stories with MSI. I personally had an issue with MSI in regards to my graphics card.
Mhm.
So the graphics card I have it in right now is a 37 from Gigabyte, but I had a 2080 I had a 2080 2070
Mhm.
from MSI, and it had issues. So I sent it in for repairs, and they sent me back a graphics card with the same issues. They sent it, and then there was this back and forth every single time for 6 months until I got really pissed off, and so and so they upgraded me to 2080 Super, which was nice of them.
Mhm.
Yes, I'll admit, but it also like they should have just sent me a working graphics card, and I wouldn't have complained nearly as badly.
Well, yeah,
And
that's what you sent it in for.
yeah, and this was during like the very early. This is before the Steam Deck was a thing. So this was
Mhm.
like back when I was still reviewing keyboards, and I might have to get into that back at some point. But I mean, it was detrimental to my channel. Thankfully I had a backup 1070, but if I didn't have that, I would have been screwed.
That's just odd. Like, I know customer service in general for like bigger companies is generally not known to be great, but overall it's just a weird one. That's not consumer friendly in the slightest. And that's
Mm-mm.
why like I'm still like on the fence if they might just kind of go back and say, well, here's the ROG Ally 2, and they're just using like an 8840U version, like you said, like a Z1 1.5 Extreme, instead of going to a Z2 or something along those lines. So like, I don't know. I don't trust them too much. I feel like, yeah, I'm skeptical, and that's one of the reasons why. Like, again, I very much appreciate Valve way more because they, at least with the Steam Deck, they've been making very good on their word. They've been showing an insane amount of support. But in software for sure. But I mean, it's clear that they care about the hardware a lot, and I think the Steam Deck is is a much better investment than like the ROG Ally and OLED over the Ally X.
Yeah, and I think I am curious as to what Lenovo is going to do, since it's almost going to be like, since it's around this. I don't know what they're going to do, to be honest. And I kind of have a soft spot for the Legion Go because
No, I like the Legion Go over the Ally. I do.
yeah,
And they're much more communicative with the community. I've seen them reach out way more than like Asus has. So hopefully that's a good sign.
yeah. My brother actually likes his Lenovo Legion Go a lot better because he had an RG Ally and it did
Hmm.
mess up, and his micro SD card was messed up. He had to send it in for an RMA,
Hmm.
and I helped him with that process. But I mean, yeah, he likes it a lot better. He sold his Ally, so
Hmm.
yeah, that tells you how much. That tells you how much he liked his Ally.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
I don't blame him.
yeah. I'm just curious as to whether or not Lenovo is going to do the same thing Asus is doing. Make
Hmm.
like a ROG, like a Lenovo Legion Go 1.5, Lenovo Legion Go X, so to speak, or
Well,
if
I
they'll
guess we'll
wait.
see. We'll see. They haven't really announced anything or made any indications if they're going to do a hardware refresh. So who knows? Maybe they're just going to focus on software for right now, and then maybe they'll make a second one when there is a sizable difference. They just haven't announced it.
Maybe we'll see. I think once we approach like the 1 year anniversary, we'll get some more information.
Oh yeah, no, for sure. Well, other than that, thank you guys for watching this episode of the SDHQ podcast, and thank you again to High Tech Lowlife for being here and making the time to co-host with me.
Thank you for having me again. It's an honor to be on this podcast.
Well, thank you. That means a lot to me, and I really appreciate you taking the time to be here, and yeah. If you want to support us and you want to watch these episodes early and get to see some of the cut content that didn't make it into the public version of the podcast, you can go ahead and subscribe to our Patreon. We upload the uncut version of the podcast a couple days early. So, you get to get some exclusive content and you get to support us, which we really appreciate. And to everyone who is a patron already, thank you so much for supporting us.
Yeah, thank you. And I'm so glad to
And
meet all of y'all.
yeah. And with that, thank you guys for watching, and we will see you next week.
All right, thank you very much.
Yeah.